More than 70,000 protesters are expected to join a pro-Palestinian march in London on Saturday, calling for a ceasefire in the Middle East. The Metropolitan Police has urged the organisers to postpone their protest due to planned events in the capital to mark Armistice Day at the Cenotaph. They've said the risk of violence and disorder linked to breakaway groups is growing, and they're urging protesters to reconsider their plans. The Prime Minister said a march on Armistice Day would be provocative and disrespectful. Scotland's First Minister, though, Humza Yousaf, said the ceasefire protest should go ahead as it is calling for peace, becoming a very big moment. We've then got this story of in the Mail. Just have a look at this, the poppy seller punched by protesters. I don't understand what was going on there at all. But there was some sort of protest around this guy, and he got hit, he says. What do you think, Rachel? Well, should the police have been tougher on this?
So this is a really difficult one for me personally, because as someone who's Jewish, I have found the marches really quite unsettling. And being in central London at the time that they are seeing protesters, it has made me feel a bit on edge and a bit unsafe, frankly, and some of the language being used, I think, is abhorrent. Maybe a minority of people using it, but still, it's a very unsettling feeling. At the same time, I've spent the last 3 years banging on about the right for peaceful protest and looking at the restrictions that were brought in by the Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Bill and the Public Order Bill that give the police sweeping new powers to shut down protests that could be a bit disruptive or a bit noisy or a bit inconvenient. And I've spoken out very vocally against that, because I think the right to peaceful protest and to free expression is a really core part of our society and our democracy, and it would be very hypocritical of me to object to this because I find this particular protest a bit distasteful. So I think if they can go ahead safely, and safely is the operative word here, then they should be allowed to. They're expressing a view, and that's what British society is all about.
Cristo.
I don't think you're being hypocritical because, and I'll tell you why, because I think you've actually summed it up there, the right to peacefully protest. The problem with some of the people in these protests, not all, is that they are not being peaceful. We have seen people giving quite hateful chants. We've seen people who are calling for jihad. We've seen the story of people who see the poppy, and of course, let's not forget, Armistice Day is a really emotive day anyway. And obviously, it centres around the poppy and remembrance. We've seen the examples of some people who are protesting who see the poppy as something that is something that should be attacked. Now, again, that's not all. I hate.
By the way, I don't understand the logic of that. I mean, obviously it's wrong anyway, but I don't understand why a group of people protesting for Palestine would hit a poppy seller.
I agree.
What is that? Is it to do with the British connection with the stuff in the 1920s or what?
Yeah, but then also as well, if you consider that not all, again, but a lot of the people who are protesting are of the Islamic faith, well, lots of Muslims died in the Second World War as well, and I would see the poppy as commemorating them as well. So it seems quite strange that they would be that target. But I think that unfortunately, if some of the people protesting, and on any other day of the year, I would say go ahead and protest. And on any other day of the year, I would say that the Met Police, who have actually partly created this situation by not clamping down on some of those pockets of bad behaviour strongly enough up till this point, I would say that they should be able to protest. But Armistice Day is such a provocative day, it's such an emotional day, and the police themselves have said that there is a higher risk of violence and disorder. There have been 160 arrests so far. So I think on a day like this, the protest shouldn't go ahead.
All right. I think that the organisers tweeted something about their intentions, so we can see that. We will be protesting on November the 11th as planned. That apostrophe is triggering. Miles away from the Cenotaph. Suella Braverman's comments and attempts to stir up a culture war are indicative of her moral bankruptcy and unfitness for office. So that's Ben Jamal. And, of course, Braverman had said that they are hate marches. Do you think that's right?
I think that's really unhelpfully provocative language. Certainly, I think that some of the calls they do come from a place of hate. I think from the river to the sea, that is calling for the annihilation of Israel, and anyone who tries to pretend that that line means something else, it doesn't. And there's a reason that people are using that line, and I would, for anyone going on these marches to call for peace and to call for a ceasefire, I would say please think carefully about the language that you're using and the message that sends to the community and the Jewish community in particular. But I don't think it's right to call the whole thing a hate march.
I know
They're
that
marching
marchers.
for peace.
Sorry, I know that marchers say that there are Jewish people on the marches.
I'm sure there are. There
Yeah.
have also been Jewish people demonstrating in other ways over the last couple of weeks with posters of the hostages, for example. And I'm not sure the Met Police has always had a particularly consistent line on that. There have been some rather disturbing
people
incidents
taking them down
and telling Jewish protesters to stay away for their own safety. And I think there can't be any kind of double standard here. It is a very sensitive issue. But as the organisers have said, it's not going past the Cenotaph. It's in a different part of London, and I think it would say something quite worrying about our society if we banned it.
Let's just get calls on. Karen in Herefordshire. Hi, Karen.
Good morning, Jeremy.
What do you think? Should the Met stop this?
No, I think the protest should go ahead, in particular on Remembrance and Armistice Day. Armistice Day and the poppy, it's all about remembrance and maybe stopping and thinking about all the wars that have gone on before, and that we need peace, and war is not a solution to anything.
All right, stay there, Karen. Let me just bring in Ralston, who's a veteran, I understand, in London. You disagree with that, Ralston?
Yeah, I disagree with it, because the fact of the matter is, you know, as Karen just said, it's about Armistice Day. Well, Armistice Day itself is on the 11th, and then we parade on Sunday. And you know, there's chat about breakaway groups breaking away from the protest, and them coming down to, you know, protest however they want to protest. I'm not against people, you know, and their right to protest, but I don't think it's appropriate on this weekend.
Ralston, why it's appropriate on the 11th especially?
Well, that's because when the armistice was
Let Karen say. Hang on, Ralston. Karen, can you tell Ralston why you think the 11th is especially appropriate?
Yes, because, as you say, it's Armistice Day, and because it's Armistice Day, and that is about previous wars, and also, the point about this is that there are very large numbers of people in that protest, and the government and this country need to reflect that. For example, I'm English-born. My ancestors are all coming from England, and I am absolutely ashamed and frustrated at this government and their stance that they've taken on this. And this is not about anti-Semitism or anything along those lines. This is about going back to every religion, what is right and what is wrong.
Right. I don't know if that's going to... Ralston, are you persuaded by that or not?
No, not really. I don't think... It doesn't matter if you're English or wherever you're from, you know what I mean? I was born here myself. You know what I mean? I serve my country, and I just don't think it's appropriate for people to demonstrate around the Cenotaph or near the Cenotaph to provoke a reaction on Remembrance weekend.
OK, thank you, Ralston. Thank you, Karen. We'll talk more about this after the break.